The CEO pulled the chair away just as Ethan was about to sit down. The room went silent. Victoria held the chair and pointed toward the far side of the room. "Employees, sit over there." Ethan looked at the empty space. Nearly 20 executives were watching him. He could have shown her the invitation on his phone. Instead, he lowered his eyes and said, "Of course." A few people exchanged uncomfortable looks. Ethan carried his lunch to the small end table near the windows. What happened next would make the woman who humiliated him question everything she believed about the company she ran. Ethan had joined Northbridge Technologies 6 weeks earlier as a financial analyst. He was a single father who had spent years rebuilding his life after his wife died. He never used his personal story to gain sympathy. He worked, paid the bills, and kept moving. His daughter had once told him that he apologized even when other people bumped into him. He laughed when she said it. She was right. At Northbridge, Ethan quickly noticed something unusual. Employees were friendly when Victoria was away. When she entered a room, conversations changed. People stopped questioning decisions. Even senior managers seemed careful about every word. During his first month, he found numbers in a report that didn't match company records. He reported the discrepancy through the proper channel. Nothing happened. A week later, the same figures appeared in a presentation prepared for Victoria. Ethan quietly asked the analyst about it. The man glanced around before whispering, "Let it go." Ethan didn't. He requested the original records. That request reached Victoria. Instead of calling him into her office, she invited him to the executive luncheon. Ethan assumed she wanted to discuss the report. He arrived early and placed his homemade lunch beside an empty chair at the executive table. Victoria entered with several senior managers. She stopped when she saw him. Her eyes moved to the lunchbox, then to his plain jacket. Without a word, she picked up the chair and carried it away. "Senior leadership sits here." Ethan remained standing. One executive looked down. Another gave a faint smile. Victoria pointed toward the staff tables. "You'll be more comfortable there." Ethan felt the heat rise into his face. He had not expected the humiliation. Still, he picked up his lunchbox and walked away. He sat near the windows. A few minutes later, 2 employees quietly joined him. They apologized for not speaking up. Ethan told them there was nothing to apologize for. Then the cafeteria doors opened. An elderly man in a gray suit entered. The conversations around the room faded. Victoria turned toward him. Her face changed instantly. The man looked across the cafeteria, ignored the executive table, and walked toward Ethan. He stopped beside him, then, with a calm smile, he asked, "Is this seat taken?" Ethan looked at the empty chair. "No, sir." The man pulled it out and sat down beside him. Victoria remained frozen across the room. Ethan still didn't know who the man was, but everyone else did. Victoria's expression suggested she had just made an expensive mistake. The elderly man looked at Ethan. Victoria finally approached. "Dad, what are you doing here?" He smiled. "I came to see how the company treats people." His name was Harold. He had founded Northbridge 28 years earlier and remained on the board after Victoria became CEO. Harold asked about Ethan's first weeks. Ethan mentioned the financial discrepancy he had reported, careful not to accuse anyone. Harold listened, then asked Victoria whether she had reviewed the original numbers. Victoria hesitated. She said Ethan had misunderstood the seating arrangement reserved for senior leadership. Harold looked at her calmly. "That explains the table. It doesn't explain the disrespect." The next morning, Harold requested Ethan's financial analysis. By noon, he discovered the discrepancy was no mistake. Several forecasts had been adjusted before reaching the board, inflating the company's performance. Ethan had found the problem because he compared records others were afraid to question. The investigation led to Martin, Northbridge's chief financial officer. Martin admitted he had hidden losses from a failed expansion project, believing he could recover the money before anyone noticed. But employees had warned him months earlier. He ignored them because nobody wanted to bring bad news to Victoria. Victoria had never ordered the manipulation, yet her leadership had created the environment that allowed it. Her obsession with control had taught people that disagreement was dangerous. Victoria asked Ethan to meet privately. There was no audience this time. She apologized for humiliating him. Ethan listened quietly. Then he told her the apology wasn't enough. People here are afraid to tell you when something is wrong. Victoria looked down. Ethan continued, "If I were you, I'd make it safe for people to tell me I'm wrong." The sentence stayed with her. Victoria removed Martin, ordered an independent audit, and created a confidential reporting system that bypassed senior management. Then she quietly changed the executive seating policy. The following Monday, Victoria carried her lunch into the cafeteria and sat at the same table where Ethan had been humiliated. Ethan looked at her, surprised. She gave him an uncomfortable smile. "I owe you more than an apology." Ethan nodded. He didn't pretend everything was fixed. Trust would take time. Months later, the audit confirmed the hidden losses, but Northbridge survived. Employees who had once remained silent were finally encouraged to speak openly. Ethan joined the new financial oversight team. He still brought the same homemade lunch in the same worn lunchbox. Now, nobody saw it as a sign of status. One afternoon, Victoria watched Ethan help a nervous employee present a difficult concern to the board. The employee expected anger, but Ethan simply told him to continue. Victoria finally understood what she had missed. The man she had pushed away from the executive table had not needed a seat. He had needed someone willing to listen. If this story meant something to you, share it with someone who believes respect should never depend on a person's title, salary, or place at the table. And tell us honestly, if you were Ethan, would you have spoken up after being humiliated, or stayed silent to protect your job? Subscribe for more emotional stories about dignity, courage, and second chances.